So you mentioned earlier kind of excitement around psychedelics. A figure who maybe can bridge into that is Ram Dass, who Richard Alpert was his christened name. Worked with Timothy Leary at Harvard, and I think is someone we both have found real kind of just lots of value, I guess, in at least speaking for myself, lots of value in his teachings. And he was born Jewish, right? And I think he kind of turned to Hinduism, but then kind of all forms of spirituality. And in his later life, I think really kind of rediscovered his Judaism, right?
Yeah. When you listen to when you listen to all of his lectures, specifically on his podcast, which I told you before, saved my life. It is in those later talks that when he starts to reckon with his present incarnation, right? That he likes to talk about that when he finally is coming to terms with his father, with his mother, with his sexuality, and kind of coming back to who he was. Dick Alpert. You do hear in that, right, the desire to grapple with his Judaism, which he says there is a lot of Yiddishism thrown around there. Certainly they were his parents were major figures in the Jewish community. Suburban, affluent, I'd say white Jews. And he never was able to encounter some of the riches of that tradition because it just wasn't available to him at that time where he was. But meeting figures like Rabbi Zalman Schachter Shalomi, who is seen as the founder of the Jewish renewal movement, who in 1964 took acid with Timothy Leary and writes about his experience in like a 40-page trip report. Them meeting Ram Dass and Zalman Schachter Shalomi is a major turning point for him. He starts to then even see in his own tradition the points where the ideas of karma, of unity emerge for him. But he even starts to quote stories from like Rebbe Nachman of Breslov at some point. So I think from what I know and what I see, he warmed up to it. He didn't completely embrace it toward the end. He was so steeped in his own Hindu Buddhist traditions. But what it did, I think, is it left an opening for other people who were excited then about looking at their own tradition, not having to play in someone else's playground, but to see what is here, what is also here now. So you see kind of two movements. You see, let's say, Jewish people who had either ecstatic experiences or psychedelic experiences in the 60s and 70s. They find resonance in American Buddhist, Zen, Hindu teachers who are speaking about these unitive experiences. They get on the cushion, they get on the mat, and they stay there. And in a lot of ways, they become, some of the most important teachers of these American Eastern traditions. And at the same time, you have what is called the Baal Tshuva, right? This people returning to the faith movement on the Jewish end. So people who had been raised in contexts a lot like Ram Dass, they start practicing regularly. They start looking at Jewish texts. They start creating their own how-to manuals. Something that is beloved to me and to many others is the first Jewish catalog, which is like a very how-to whole earth catalog inspired, our bodies, ourselves, that kind of aesthetic. Like, how do you live a rich Jewish life that is ongoing, that is full of presence, and is authentic, whatever authentic means. So you have this diversion that I think is equal and opposite, and it makes me just wonder, what if we had a container for the coming psychedelic renaissance? People are going to be having these powerful insights. They're going to be having these powerful encounters and visions, Jewish people and otherwise. if we had a vessel to receive the blessing that they will receive in whatever form, terrible or terrific, but they knew that there was somewhere for them to land in their own tradition, either to be able to help make sense of it or to integrate it through embodied practice. How much richer then could we be and the world be by them actually turning their focus inward? I always like to think, like, if Joseph Goldstein had actually become a master of Kabbalah and not of Buddhism, where would we be now?